Welcome. Thank you for joining me for Thursday Lunch with Matt on April 21st. This is episode 11. Today we're going to find balance and look at being re-aimed in the midst of trials. In leadership, it doesn't matter if you're speaking on stage or leading a team. You and I realize that when the lights are on, everyone is watching. And oftentimes we neglect that no matter what, they're still watching. When you're a leader, you're on for 24/7. You probably feel the same way in your role at work, and it's easy to understand when you're being looked at. So let's jump right to the deep end of the pool here and look at what it feels like to be treading water ever since you've been on stage, people are watching. Now we're trying to pedal, paddle, do whatever it takes so that we don't drown. And what we need to recognize is when we're thrown to the deep end of the pool, welcome to the world of leadership. The leadership reality isn't just in your imagination. Everyone really is looking at you as a leader. And it is if you can feel as though they're looking right through you. You don't even have to pause to recognize, yeah, they are watching you even on that occasional bad day. So, you and I may struggle to find the fact that we need room for us to struggle through our own personal issues. So, today, let's be honest. Our culture expects leaders to keep their personal lives at home because there's no place for your personal life at work. We've heard that enough. The reality is that our work comes home with us and our problems at home come back to work. We're human and we all have issues like everyone else. But leaders, though, are expected to simply press on through every trial. And you might ask why. As leaders, we recognize that it is our role and it is our aim to focus on what we might have to establish as even your own creed. So leaders, maybe you've never seen a creed or even understand, but I want you to pause with me and go back to a picture that would come from a movie, Saving Private Ryan. Tom Hanks resonates with this picture, this understanding. As Tom Hanks plays this role, he's breaking down after years of stuffing emotion away. He's facing the awful picture of war, the things he's seen, the things he's done, and finally he's at a place where he falls apart all alone. A few scenes earlier, the captain's troops had asked him why they've never saw him in a bad mood, and he responded by saying this, that leaders don't complain down the line, they go up the chain of command. But what he didn't mention was those that are up the chain of command really don't want to hear about it. So the reality, as we see so dramatically played out in that film, is that leader often had no one to turn to. Therefore, they tend to suffer silently and alone. Maybe that's you. Your leadership role challenges you every day as you struggle to balance guiding and directing team members while mentoring the wide scope of people and the varying ages that are gathered around you. On top of that, you likely have your own responsibilities to attend to. So, therefore, what happens when your personal life hits a speed bump or completely, utterly crashes? We've all been there, and it feels so very isolating. But as I want to suggest this and think about this, I've met the enemy, and often it is me. Unfortunately, the very things that make us good leaders, strong will, determination, dedication to serving, and so on, can only make us lousy at dealing with personal issues. Unfortunately, we put on that quote, suck it up, and we take it as a pro and we press on. Or at least that's what I did because I really didn't know any other way. The lonely road is the road of leadership. During our dark days, and I wrote this including you because you can relate to this, but it's really during my dark days because I assume we typically all default the same way. In the dark days, I'll spare you the details, but suffice it to say, I was going through almost all major stress factors at once while trying to maintain my career. I spent a lot of energy putting on a happy face. In fact, most people had no clue to what I was going through. Sadly, like most, we see those days as a badge of honor at the time. The less people know about my horrible situation, my life, or really what was going on, the more in control I thought I was. In addition, I think I used to lead as a way to hide from my personal life. We can often pour ourselves into our role in hopes that home stuff will sort itself out. Then days turn into weeks and weeks into months and months into years. And when we avoid the hard stuff, time doesn't heal. It only compounds the fracture. Most parents probably didn't sit down like we should do and say to your children, hey, honey, when life falls apart one day, here's how you get through it. I don't think I'm alone in that. Our education and training doesn't address it either, unless it's a profound foundational worldview that has been anchored into you, a foundation to stand on and to speak to ourselves simple foundational truths of God and who God is and who he has for us in plans. So if we're anchored in God, in that we have the ability to make smarter decisions. And by doing so, we actually become better leaders. The journey through the darkness, I discovered, has the picture here where by not sharing at least with one close person, a trusted friend, you and I are preventing God from working through our trials with those people, that friend, interacting, praying, helping aim us. I believe fully that God uses prayers and the prayers of others to accomplish his will in us. And I don't believe that God desires his servants to burn up as a ball of flames as they're trying to lead. We are no good to God's kingdom and God's purpose when we're so dry that we have nothing left to give. You might ask, how did I learn this? Well, the same way you've learned this. When my life has unraveled to the point where I can no longer hide from it, and believe me, yours will too if it hasn't, and yours too, you'll need to address it. A friend of mine called me and read me the Riot Act once. They said, in my pride and my selfishness, I've denied them the ability to be the friend in Christ that they needed to be for me. Therefore, they were not or could not even pray for me to grow in godly wisdom to be able to resolve my issues because I'd shut them off. Now, understand, we're to turn to God first, as James tells us, understand, seek me for wisdom. They didn't even know the situation or the trial or have the ability then to reach out and pray. Ouch, you might say. That's not to say that you should dump all of your burdens on your team, but you must be wise and seek the ear of someone who actually cares, someone who will pray, somebody who will intercede. Just having someone listen to your challenges can make a difference in the weight of your troubles. It helps you relieve your anxieties, and it helps you find ways to be able to move where maybe once you couldn't even move. It may not change your trials, it may not change them at all, but knowing someone is praying for you will give you the extra strength to keep going, which fortunately we all know we must do. As we've discussed in the past, Jesus is the best example of the leader that I know to bring forth for you to see how to emulate this. And even as we looked at his death last week, as we celebrate Easter, we recognize even the conversation of death and him taking on the weight of sin and loss of the world had him to the place where he was even overwhelmed. But he understood before he's fulfilling his purpose. But nonetheless, he pressed on toward the goal, but not without first asking his Father for help. Friends, find a friend. Select someone you trust who has your best interest in mind and who isn't even on your team. This person can be anyone outside that knows you well enough for you to place on them what's going on. This person may be your spouse, a peer, a family member, or a small group member. Don't exclude counselors or consultants. They may be the exact sounding board with objectives and insights and feedback that you need to hear. But mainly and mostly, pray. To get through your darkest days and to face the midst of darkness, that might be easier said done than pray. But know this, God is nearer to you in your darkest hour than you could ever imagine. But you must rely on him, draw your strength from him, and understand as a leader, you cannot do anything on your own accord. I have often said to leaders that I've worked for in helping be the wisest advisor to them in their role is you must be able to be led up, meaning those that are underneath you in leadership in your organization, working for you, leading you by giving you the information they have going on at the level at which they are leading. And what also happens is the leader leads and leads up to the chain of command above them. The CEO, the COO, the president, the director of operations, all those at the top can't think they know it all. They have to understand and rely on those underneath them. Those at the top have dark days. Those in the middle have dark days. Those that are just at the place of growth where they're just developing as a leader, they have dark days. My greatest thing I can aim you today is asking you, place your trust in the one that gives you the greatest amount of wisdom. Cry out to God. He asks for you to cry out to him. In your trials, come to me. I will give you wisdom to face them. But you don't have to bury that burden and do it alone. Rely on a friend, reach out to a friend, and trust the strength that can come from prayer through that one person interceding for you when you don't have the strength to do it on your own. Be the best leader you can be. Fight forward. Be a friend, be a foe, be the ally that somebody needs to help them grow. The hardest thing in leadership, though, is in your dark days, understanding how to humble yourself, how to surrender, and how to ask for help. Thank you for joining me today. Hopefully this helps empower your lunch this Thursday, this over the hump. We're past Wednesday, how to fight forward within your organization, within your team to create growth. Be strong, be courageous. Have a great day.